Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to my Games of the Month video log for February 2025. In this video, I'll be talking about all of the games that I've been playing since the last video log, give you an update on the Patreon, some personal updates, and what's coming new in the next few weeks. I'm recording this on February 24th, so it covers a period from January 27th all the way through to today. Before we start, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for funding the channel. This video is not sponsored in any way and all of the advertising revenue goes to charity. So the only way I'm able to make these videos is because of the support of the Patreon. Thank you very much, and if you like the content that I make and you want to support me directly, you can do so at patreon.com/gaming rules. Okay, let's dive on in and talk about all of the games that I've been playing. But just before we do, this is Paul in the editing room and I've had an idea. This is something that I'm going to start this month as an extra bonus for my Patreon supporters. What I'm going to be doing is, in addition to this video log, I am going to be using the Pub Meeple ranking system, and I'm going to do a stream where I go through all of the games that I've played this month and I rate them against each other. Now, I've done this a few times with like my entire collection and it's always a bit of fun, but I've decided to start this month as a bonus for my Patreon supporters. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you should be getting some kind of notification through the Patreon system of this extra bonus video where I rate all of the games that I've played. So first of all, at the end of January, the 30th of January, I did a couple of games of an Age Contrived. One of these was a practice game played in the afternoon, and then on the Thursday evening, I did a live public playthrough of the game with the new expansion. This is because the game is going back to Kickstarter with an expansion. I previously covered the game a couple of years ago, and Chris, the designer of the game, contacted me and said he would like me to cover the expansion on the channel. So I did, and that is on the channel now if you are interested. I think the Kickstarter campaign or the Game Found campaign, whichever campaign it is, I think it's probably finished at this point. Let me just check. So I've just checked, and at the time of me recording this video, it is on Kickstarter and it's got 53 hours to go. So by the time you are watching this video, the campaign will have finished. There might possibly be some late pledge or something like that. But what I would say is, if you are interested in the game, please check out the playthrough of it. That will give you a good idea of how it plays. Now, I have kind of mixed feelings on the base game, but the expansion, I did actually enjoy the expansion. It provides an additional new board where you're going to be moving up and you're going to be building these camps or tents or something like that. Anyway, I really liked that part of the game, and I felt that it added to the base game without taking anything away. It's always the danger with these expansions when you give players a new type of thing to do. If the game doesn't take any longer, then suddenly you're diluting the rest of the game and you're not able to do that. I didn't find that was a problem in this game. I felt that the expansion did add to it. Now, if you didn't like the base game, I don't think this expansion is going to fix anything. I don't think it's going to change your mind on it, but the expansion is there for people who already like the game and want something else. So yes, the Kickstarter campaign will have just finished, but that is on the channel if you want to go and watch that. On the 31st of January, the last day of January, we were heading off to a board game convention in Torquay. But what I did just before I headed off to the convention is I did a solo playthrough of Andromeda's Edge. Again, this is on the channel now if you want to go and watch it. This was not a sponsored playthrough, even though I have done sponsored playthroughs, a sponsored playthrough for this game. I think this was maybe my 6th game of Andromeda's Edge, and it was the first time that I played it solo. Now, that video is a little rough. I remember learning how to play the solo game kind of just before or whilst I was playing that video, but Andromeda's Edge is one of those games which has grown on me the more I play it. I remember talking about this game in a couple of video logs over the last few months, and unlike a lot of other people who were massively hyped about this game, saying it was their best game of the year and one of the best games ever designed, I enjoyed the game, but I certainly didn't come away with that impression, not considering last year had such astonishingly fantastic games. This one I enjoyed, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I would based on what everybody was saying about it. But saying that, the more I've played it, the more it has grown on me, and the solo mode was enjoyable. So if you want to see a solo playthrough of Andromeda's Edge, that is on the channel now. Would I play it again solo? Yes, I absolutely would. Would I play the base game again, not solo? Then yes, absolutely I would. I feel that certainly the deluxe version with all of the extra bits included has got a lot of replayability in the game. Now, the solo mode doesn't come with the base game of this. So if you are looking to get Andromeda's Edge and you just get the base game of it, there isn't a solo mode included. The solo mode is included in the Escalation expansion, which has a load of extra bits as well. So yeah, if you're looking for the solo mode of Andromeda's Edge, you will need to get the expansion. But yeah, I very much enjoyed that one. So then we headed off to Torquay for Full Board Gaming. Now, Full Board Gaming is an interesting convention. It's hosted by a good friend of ours, Matt, who we've known for, I'm going to say more than 15 years. I'm pretty sure it's more than 15 years. If not, it's about 15 years. We're good friends with Matt, and me and Vicky actually go to it together. Now, Vicky isn't really a board gamer, and the idea of being at a board game convention it fills her with dread, because she doesn't like learning new games and she doesn't like playing games generally. She will play a few games with me or escape room style games and things like that, but generally speaking, she's not into the same sort of games that I am. So why did she go to Full Board Gaming? Well, that's because Full Board Gaming happens at the end of January. Vicky is an accountant. January is her most busy month of the year. It's very, very stressful. And Full Board Gaming is what's called a residential convention. That means you don't buy a ticket to the convention, you book a room at the hotel, and that actually gives you access to the convention itself. It does also mean it's full board gaming, so breakfast is included and dinner is included. And the food there is exceptionally good. And the hotel has a spa, a sauna, and all sorts of things like that. So for Vicky, it's a weekend away at the end of a very stressful month of work, where she doesn't have to worry about cooking, cleaning, or anything like that. And I get to play games for a few days, and she gets to go to the spa, the sauna, go for a walk on the beach, and that sort of things. Now, the games that I played a lot of really good games, and it was nice for me to kind of switch off a bit from all of the games that I play during a month. Half of them are because I need to cover it on the channel. This was an opportunity for me to say, right, I'm going to get some games played here where I can just play what I want to play. So the first game I played was Civolution. I had a fantastic game of Civolution. I mean, it is my favourite game of 2024. Most games that I play of it are very enjoyable, but this was a really good game because everybody knew how to play it, and I think we were about 2.5 hours. So I know some people feel that this game is exceptionally long. I remember Rado talking about it in his video and saying the game is insanely long. Right, it's not. Sorry, Richard, but it's not. It was a 2.5 hour game for 3 players. That, in my opinion, is not an exceptionally long game. So yeah, your first games of Civolution are going to be longer, but yeah, that was a great game. I'm not going to talk too much about Civolution because I've talked about it a lot over the last 9 months or a year. But yeah, fantastic game. Then we followed up with the game of Evenfall with the expansion. After saying that Full Board Gaming was a time where I'm going to get the chance to play games that I want to play rather than having to play games to learn them, to cover them on the channel, I had been planning to cover Evenfall on the channel. And this is not a sponsored video, and we'll talk about this later on. But I wanted to play Evenfall again because it had been a long time since I played it. So sat down, played Evenfall with the expansion. Fantastic. And I'm going to talk about Evenfall a bit more later on, but I absolutely loved that game. It was really, really good. Also, this is on the Saturday, I played the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, and I also played this again on the Sunday. So on both the Saturday and the Sunday, I got together with some people and we tried out the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game. Now, I'd previously played this last month. I probably talked about it in the video log there, but we played it a bit more. And we got up to, I think, chapter 4 on the Saturday, and then with a new group of people, we played quite a lot, and we ended up getting to chapter 5. So I think there are 18 chapters included in this game. I've only played up to chapter 5, but I am very much enjoying this game. If you don't know what this game is, imagine The Crew, but with hobbits. It's essentially and I'm not going to say just a re-theme of The Crew, because it does do things a little differently, but it is a cooperative trick-taking game where you have various missions. Each mission has special rules associated with it, and you're trying to progress through the chapters of the game. I think from my experience with it so far, and as I say, I've only played 5 chapters, but the missions are more different than they are in The Crew. And the other main comparison that I would say is that in The Crew, the players themselves don't have any asymmetric abilities or powers. What happens is at the start of The Crew, players will select missions that have been chosen at random, and that mission tells them what they need to do. In the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, the mission is determined by your character. So you actually choose which character you want to play after you've been dealt your initial cards. So one of the characters, Pippin, Fool of a Tuck, his objective is to not win any tricks. So essentially, once the cards have all been dealt out at the start of the game, you need to look at your hand of cards, and if you think, I'm not going to win any tricks with this, then Pippin is the character that you want. So yeah, similar to the crew in that you will select your mission after seeing your cards, you will select your character after seeing the cards. I will tell you that this game is going to be coming to the channel at some point in, I think it's March. I think I've got a date set for it for March. So you'll be seeing it on the channel. I'll be talking more about it then, but really enjoyed the game. Let me know, have you played the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game? And if so, how far have you got through it? Have you finished the whole game, or have you only achieved a certain number of chapters? Also, on either the Saturday, I think it was the Saturday night, after we went bowling, we came back and we played a couple of light games. Now, we played the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, but then there was a little bit of time before I went to bed, and I thought, okay, I do fancy playing some more games. And the people who I played that game with suggested a couple of games, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'm up for something. It's Saturday night, it's late, I just want something light and easy. And Joel suggested Cabanga. Now, I've not played this game before, but I really enjoyed it. This is a game which I am probably going to try and pick up myself. I find it really interesting how people can do such really clever things with just cards with numbers on. And when the game got put out, I thought, uh-oh, right, this is a little bit, it looks a little bit like Six Nimmt. Now, Six Nimmt is a game which loads of people love, and I've played it dozens and dozens of times, but it's not a game that I would really want to play anymore. Sure, it has a little bit of choice in it, but I find it a little bit simplistic and a little bit look-based. If you just want something short, quick and fun, that's absolutely fine. And Cabanga, well, I wanted something short, quick and fun, but I felt that it was much more interesting, and yeah, I really enjoyed the game. Now, I'm recording this video about a month after I played it. I can't actually remember the details, so apologies for that. I'll put a picture on screen of us playing it. I just remember really enjoying it, and this is probably a game that I'm going to try and pick up. And then finally, to finish off the Saturday night, a dexterity game. Now, Rachel said, I've got a dexterity game, and I went, I don't like dexterity games. I'm not good at dexterity games whatsoever. And this was Dro Polter, whatever. It's for Moink Games. And I went, look, I'm going to bed in like 20 minutes. Sure, if everybody else wants to play it, I'll play it, but I'm really not good at dexterity games. So the idea of this game is that each player has a hand full of various weird shaped pieces. Like there's a shell, there's something else. Anyway, you've got this hand of pieces. And everybody has the same, and everybody holds all of the pieces in one hand. And then at some point at the start of the turn or the round, whatever, is a card will be flipped over, and it will have a certain number of these objects on it. And what you need to do is, with one hand and one hand only, you need to make sure that those items which are on the card are dropped out of your hand and nothing else. And then once you've done that, you need to grab the dobber or something like that. And the first player to do that wins that round. And when you win the round, you get a little tiny bell. So there's a tiny little bell that you put into your hand with all of the other pieces. Now, the cleverness is that the players that do well will be collecting more of these bells, and therefore it's actually going to make it harder for them to achieve the conditions on the card. Not only that, if you ever accidentally drop a bell out of your hand, it's gone. That's it. You've lost it. You've lost that point. And I was like, okay, we'll play this. It'll be a little bit of fun, but, we'll see how we get on. Turns out, I'm an absolute champion at this game. So the idea of this game is to get 5 bells. I managed to get 5 bells, and at the end of the game, when I won the game with 5 bells, one other player had 1 bell. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether I was just, right frame of mind, or my body was in the right zone or something like that, but I just kept winning. So I think I won the first 2, then I accidentally dropped a bell, and then I won the next 2, and then somebody else won 1, and then I won the next one, and that was it. The game was over. So it was a very quick game, but it was fun. And again, I went into this game not expecting to like it at all, and it actually worked. And I thought the cleverness of the fact that the players who are doing well therefore get a disadvantage, which make it harder for them to do well in future, just little things like that, I think make games really nice. So that was that. Then on the Sunday, in the morning, I played a game of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Now, that is only my second game of SETI, and the first game that I played of SETI was with a prototype copy of the game. It was the final copy of the game, but that was just before Essen last year, and I have been absolutely dying to play this game again because SETI was a lot of people's number one game from 2024. And having played, I absolutely loved it when I first played it. Having played it again, I can absolutely see why it is people's number one game of 2024. It's very close for me. I haven't yet done my official top 10 of 2024. I'll do that at some point this year, but I can tell you now, SETI is up there. It's not going to beat Civolution. Civolution, I have already said, that is my number one game of 2024. I really enjoyed SETI. It might be my number two game of last year. It was really, really good. So yeah, played that. Then, in the afternoon, I played War Room. Now, War Room is a game which some of you may have heard of. I have actually covered it on the channel about a year ago. But back in the 80s, there was a game that came out called Axis and Allies by Larry Harris. Axis and Allies was one of those games which I played a lot of when I was younger. And I say younger, it was late 80s, early 90s. Axis and Allies was one of those games that I played a lot. It is responsible for a lot of my knowledge of geography and where a lot of countries are in the world. And I've always had a little bit of a fascination with World War II. I find that particular conflict and how it played out and the intricacies of what was going on in various points in the world just fascinating. So Axis and Allies was always a game which I was interested in. But it is a bit of an old school game. It's got a lot of dice in it. It's very random. It can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. War Room is designed by Larry Harris. And effectively, it's a successor to Axis and Allies. It has a number of similarities, but it is a much more detailed and complex system that actually has different types of resources rather than just resources. It has rules for morale loss, which affects the people back home, and the fact that your economy will start to suffer if you're starting to lose territories on the board, and it captures a lot more about it. The combat is also dice based, but it's a lot more detailed, and it's more like Star Wars Rebellion, where you allocate certain dice results to certain things, and it's just, yeah, it's a lot more detailed system. Now, I've only played this game twice before, and one of those is on the channel. So if you are interested in seeing a playthrough of War Room, go and search my channel. It is on there. But after those two games, I was like, right, I'm quite keen on this. As I say, growing up with Axis and Allies. And I wanted to play it again. And the opportunity arrived, and we did play it again. We played 4 players. We played the War in Europe scenario. We played 4 players. Adrian was playing the Axis, and 3 of us were playing the Allies. So the 3 players who were playing the Allies, we had 1 nation each to control. Adrian had 2. He had Italy and he had Germany. If I ever played that scenario again, I think it would be better with 5 people, with 1 player playing Italy and another player playing Germany. But Adrian was fine. Adrian handled it all himself. Unfortunately, we didn't finish it. It was very much a relearning game, and it took us a good hour to set up, go through the rules, and even when we started playing, we got some of the rules wrong, and we were reading the rule book, and we were like, oh yeah, that's wrong, oh, we need to undo this. So we didn't finish the game, which is a shame, because I really wanted to finish the game. But since then, War Room is a game that I want to play more of. I don't have a copy of it myself. Adrian has a copy. I'm sure he will be happy to come round and we'll play it again. Unfortunately, the board is a 4-foot diameter sphere because it's the globe. It doesn't fit on this table, but yeah, want to play it again. Now, I have been in contact with Nightingale Games just to say, look, I'm a big fan of War Room. You know, I'd already spoken to them a couple of years ago when I covered it on the channel. But basically, I've had a discussion with them, and I can tell you now, I'm in discussion with them about doing some kind of sponsored video for Imperial Borders, which is their next game. So this is a Napoleonic themed game rather than, you know, World War II, but it also looks fantastic, designed by Larry Harris, and yeah, quite excited about that. We're talking months away, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on that. So after full board gaming, February the 4th. People came over in the afternoon. This was another one of Paul's Tuesdays, take the day off work to do some playthrough videos. Except in the afternoon, it was actually work. I did some secret play testing. Now, this is a game which I can't talk about yet. I'm still sworn to secrecy on it. My Patreon supporters have had access to that video. So it's secret, but not top secret. I actually got given permission to do that playtesting as a live playthrough for my Patreon supporters. So that went out on the afternoon of February the 4th. And since then, I've done a little bit of help with them on the rulebook. But that, I can't talk about much more about that, but I really enjoyed the game. Even though I didn't actually play it, I was hosting the game and everybody else played it. But yeah, I think it was a really good game. In the evening, we played Seven Empires, and I'm going to talk about Seven Empires now. I've actually played it twice in the last month because I played it again yesterday. So the video that I did on February the 4th, this is on the channel now if you want to watch it. This is not a sponsored video. This was a 4-player game. I think it was a 4-player game. It might have even been 3 players. Anyway, it was a live playthrough of Seven Empires. This is a game from Mac Gertz, published by PD Verlag. Now, Mac is the designer of Concordia and lots of other games. Well, Concordia is the one that most people know him for. But he designed a game years and years ago called Imperial, which was a very, very clever game because it looks like a war game and it's actually a stocks and shares game. And the whole concept behind Imperial is that the 6 nations at the time are controlled by different players over the course of the game, depending on how much you have invested into that country. Anyway, Seven Empires is the spiritual successor to Imperial. A little bit like War Room is to Axis and Allies. But Seven Empires was really good. Now, we played it. That is on the channel now, as I say, if you want to go and watch it on the 4th, and then we played it again yesterday. And I think the game is great. I remember playing Imperial when it came out and really enjoying it. But Seven Empires, for me, is an improved version of that. It's set in the 18th century, and you play over 8 rounds or 10 rounds if you want the long game. And there are, believe it or not, there are 7 empires. Russian Empire, there's the Prussia, there's the Habsburgs, the Ottomans, the British Empire, the French, and the Spanish. And what happens is, depending on the number of players in the game, you will give out these influence cards at the start, and there is an alternative variant where you can draft them. But essentially, each of the 7 empires at any one time will have a monarch, and that monarch decides what that empire is going to do. And they do what empires do. They build up their military units, they develop their technologies, they move, they attack places, they try to control, they try to spread their empire, and they're basically trying to get these power points. And at the end of the game, you rate the 7 empires on who's got the most power, they come top, and then next, etc., etc. And players will score points based on how much influence they have, multiplied by how well the empire did. So, for example, the empire that is the best empire at the end of the game, every point of influence is worth 7 victory points. So it's a stocks and shares game. It's the same sort of thing, except you're not buying it. That's the big change with 7 empires. They've got rid of the money side of things, which I never quite liked anyway. So what will happen, and what makes this game just fascinating to play and really interesting, is that because control over the different empires can and will change over the course of the game, you will find situations where, for example, the Spanish fleet will set off and start attacking the British waters and destroying the British fleet and taking control of the Irish Sea, taking control of the North Sea, and the Spanish Empire will be huge. And that is because the player, who is currently the monarch of Spain and taking actions on behalf of Spain, doesn't have any influence over Britain. But they do have influence over France. So they're interested in growing the Spanish Empire, not bothering with France whatsoever, but they have no influence in Britain, and by damaging Britain and taking points off Britain, they are effectively hurting the players who do have influence in Britain. But then what will happen is there will be some game shenanigans that go on, and the player who is controlling Britain will suddenly get the monarch of Spain. Because what they've been doing is they've actually been growing their influence with Spain, and if they manage to get the monarch of Spain, suddenly the player who is now the monarch of Spain is also got lots and lots of influence with Britain, possibly even the monarch of Britain. But that player doesn't have any influence in France. So all of a sudden, what's happened is Spain and Britain have finally, after decades of fighting, have made an alliance and have decided to turn their attention against France. And the player who was originally controlling Spain, who had influence with France, is thinking, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? I mean, sure, they're still making moves that are favouring Spain, but now they're attacking France, and I've got influence here. It's just really good. Now, if you get players in the game who just stick with the empire that they started with, then the game is going to work. It still works as a game. It's just less interesting. And game plays 2 to 6. I've played it, I can't remember how many I did on the live playthrough, but we were 5 players yesterday. And we had an interesting situation where the 3 players, the first time the opportunity came up to gain influence in another nation, they chose the empire which they've already got influence in. And in fact, 2 of the players, Chris, who was playing Britain, and Michael, who was playing Spain, at the start of the game, they controlled those empires at the end of the game, because what they did is they just tried to reinforce the empire that they already had control of. And to be fair, those 2 came first and second in the game, whereas the rest of us were doing all sorts of interesting political shenanigans, moving things around. It's just the way the game came out. But yeah, that's 7 empires. This is staying in my collection. Imperial is already in the attic. Imperial was already in the, I'm not sure I'm ever going to play this game again, but 7 Empires is very much staying in my collection. The rulebook needs a bit of work, but the game itself is really good. Moving on to February the 6th, I did a rulebook consultancy in the afternoon for a game called Onward. Now, this is not top secret. This is a game which has been announced, and this is from the designer of Skytear and Skytear Horde. Onward is their next game for what I think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is Skytear 2nd edition. So Skytear Horde is a card game version of Skytear, but focuses more on the solo and the cooperative play, whereas Skytear is very much a PvP game. Onward is kind of the next iteration of that game. It is very much a League of Legends style game, very popular computer game, which is about creatures fighting in lanes and minions moving and push and pull. There's been a few board games that do this, but I really enjoyed this game. Now, I am professionally involved in this game. I am being paid to do rulebook consultancy for it, and I'm also being paid to do a playthrough video. My copy of the game, the prototype, is on its way to me. I got a tracking notice this morning, and I'm going to be covering that game on the channel, I think it's like the 2nd of March or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was a professional piece of work, but yeah, I did enjoy the game. And then on the Thursday evening, February the 6th, and also on the Friday afternoon, and then on the Friday evening, I played Fateforge. Now, this is on the channel as well. Not all of them. The February the 6th was me taking the game to my local club and getting a practice game in. Then, in the afternoon of February the 7th, another practice game, and then in the evening, a live playthrough on the channel. So if you want to see what all the fuss is about with Fateforge, there is a video on my channel from Friday, February the 7th in the evening. Now, bearing in mind, this was a sponsored playthrough. Mighty Boards have been clients of mine, and I've been friends with them for many, many, many years now, since before Mighty Boards was even formed. They ask me every so often to do videos for their games, which are sponsored videos. And when Fateforge first came out, they contacted me and said, Paul, we'd like you to cover this game on the channel. We think it's something that you and your audience would like. Would you be interested in covering it? Now, at the time, I said no. The reason why I said no is I was simply swamped. I had way too much work on. But after the game came out, so many people were telling me about Fateforge. Now, I heard all of the usual marketing buzz, those lines that some content creators give, including myself, that make the game sound like the best game ever. Whatever. Move on. I actually had friends whose opinion I trust telling me that the game was really, really good. So I was actually quite looking forward to this game. And when Mighty Boards approached me and asked me to cover it again, because they were going back to crowdfunding with an expansion for it, I was like, yes, straight away. Straight away I just said yes, because I didn't want to miss out again. So my honest opinion, bearing in mind the videos that I did were sponsored, they were right. Everybody was right. Everybody who was telling me that this game is really, really good were absolutely right. So, at its heart, Fateforge is a campaign-based 1 to 4 player. It might be 1 to 4 player, it might be 2 to 4, can't remember. But it's a cooperative fantasy campaign game with characters leveling up, with going around and killing monsters. We've heard this before. There's so many games like this in this genre now. What makes Fateforge special is it's very streamlined. It's so streamlined you can play a single game of it in about an hour. I mean, each little mission or scenario or whatever is 3 rounds long. The ones we've played anyway. There might be ones later in the campaign that are 4 rounds. But that's it. So you're not talking about a 90-page rulebook and a 3.5-hour session each time you play with hundreds of minis or anything like that. It is very focused, very streamlined, and that's a breath of fresh air. But it also meant that, considering people like me are used to far more complex games, and the people I played it with were like, this is great. So it's not that we've all got so old we don't want complex games anymore. It's just that this opened our eyes to the fact that games don't have to be, okay, my movement is 4, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, then have I got line of sight, then I've got to, oh, is there somebody in the way, then there's this, oh, and there's this. Right. As I say, Fateforge is very, very streamlined. You basically have map tiles on the board. Each map tile is a zone, and when you move from one zone to another. That's it. So there's no individual squares or hexes or anything like that. A melee attack is used against something in your zone. A ranged attack is used against something in the next zone. That's it. It's really, really simple. The way that the dice work is clever, and one of the parts of the game that I really enjoyed is something that I've never seen before in a game. And if you're watching this video and you have seen this in a game before, please tell me. But Fateforge has a SETI step where you basically get to play, and it uses an app. It is an app-driven game. You absolutely need the app. But what you do is you wander around the city. And the idea is that you've never been to this city before. So you've been given this crude map, which is actually not very crude at all. It's actually really nice. But you get to walk around the city. And what you do is you put into the app the direction that you're going to walk in. So you say, oh, you're in a crossroads. You can go, north, south, east, or west. So you put into the app, oh, we want to go south. So you go south. And on your physical map, you're going, okay, we're going down there. And then the app basically says, okay, you've arrived at a marketplace. There's this, this, and this. There's a tavern. Do you want to go in the tavern, or do you want to head north, south, or southeast? And you wander around this town. And there's all sorts of little adventures and things that you can have and places that you can visit. And that was just really cool. I really enjoyed that part of the game and felt it was really good. So that's enough about Fateforge. I have covered it on the channel if you want to see the video. And if you do go to the video and you think, oh, wait a minute, this video is 2.5 hours long. I thought Paul said it was like an hour. We played multiple scenarios in that one video. We didn't just play one game. We actually played a few. So yeah, that's there on the channel. Next up, on February the 11th, this was another Tuesday, day off work. Paul invites friends around and we play some games. And this was a complete day off work because I didn't get paid for any of the videos that I'm about to talk about. First up, we played Caracas. Now, I've talked about this game a number of times since bringing it back from Essen last year, and I have played it about 5 times. I just haven't yet covered it on the channel until this month. So if you want to check that out, February the 11th, there is a live tutorial and playthrough of Caracas, and that is on the channel. Now, Caracas, I'm really happy that I've got a copy of this game. It's going to stay in my collection and I am going to carry on playing it because it is really clever, really interesting, really simple to teach, but the brain power that you have to put into the decisions that you're making, it does mess a bit with your brain. It's just a really good game about taking tiles, placing the tiles on your board and trying to meet all sorts of different scoring conditions. Okay, so it's a river. I don't want to block off the river. Oh, but there's a howler monkey on it. I want to put my howler monkeys next to the other ones, but unfortunately there's a piranha. And if I put the piranha next to the guppy, I'm going to lose the points for my guppy, so I can't put it there. But the real clever part of the game, and you will see this if you check the video out, and this is something that I don't believe has been done before, and it's what makes this game special, is you have 4 columns on your player area where you can place the tile. And there are 4 tiles on offer when it's your turn. And what you do is you place a tile and take a tile. Now that doesn't sound anything special, but The column in which you place the tile in your player area determines which tile you have to take for next round. So it's a combination of two things. You're like, well, I really want to put that tile here, but if I do, that means I'm taking that one for next round, and I don't want that one. That's a tile I don't want. So I can't put this here unless I take that tile. So maybe I won't put it here. Maybe I'll put it here. Oh yeah, I could put it here. It's not as good as putting it there, but if I put it here, I get to take that tile. So you're planning not just what you're doing now, but what you're going to be doing next turn. Takes about 45 minutes to play, works at all player count, really good game. So check out that if you're interested. Then in the afternoon, another game which I've been wanting to cover on the channel for a while. This is Star Wars, the deck building game, 4-player mode. So Star Wars, the deck building game, came out a few years ago. And I think I've covered this on the channel already. But last year, I think it was last year, they did another version of it, which was Star Wars, the deck building game, the Clone Wars, which is effectively, it's not an expansion, it's a standalone product, which is, it's pretty much the same game, just in a different setting. It's the Clone Wars setting instead of the original Star Wars setting. Asmodee UK sent me a copy of the new one, and I said I will cover this on the channel at some point. Anyway, that day, because there was 4 of us, and the game has a 4-player rule set, I was like, okay, let's do it. So that's what we did. If you want to see it, it's on the channel. This is a 4-player version of Star Wars, the deck building game. Did I feel it worked well at 4 players? No, none of us did. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't work. It does work, right? There's nothing wrong with the game at 4 players, but every single player, and if you skip to the end of that playthrough video and hear us talking about it, because it was not a sponsored video, so you get our thoughts on the game at the end, we all felt that this game would work better as a 1 versus 1. So yeah, we played it at 4 players, but I wouldn't play it at 4 players again. I would only ever play it at 2 players. And I've spoken about this game before, but in summary, and if you want a more detailed view on it, just head to that video, skip to the end where I talk about my feelings on the game. I hate Star Realms with a passion. Absolutely. I really, really dislike Star Realms. And yet, I like Star Wars, the deck building game, which is based on Star Realms. There are various reasons why I like Star Wars deck building game and don't like Star Realms. Again, check that out at the end of that video if you want to hear my detailed thoughts on it, but that's where I am with that game. And then in the evening, Evenfall, which I talked about earlier on when I was talking about full board gaming. And since I'd recently played Evenfall and I loved it, this was the time to cover it on the channel. So this is not a sponsored video. I have a good relationship with the publisher of Evenfall, but this is not a sponsored video. But I covered again. I've already covered Evenfall with the game like a year or 2 ago. This is with the expansion. So Evenfall got an expansion at Essen last year, and wow. I mean, it was really interesting because I remember playing Evenfall when it came out, and I remember playing it and thinking I enjoyed this. This was a good game. But it was only when I played it again at Full Board Gaming at the end of January that I was like, this game is really good. Not just good. This game is brilliant. Really, really good. So yeah, and then I played it again on February the 11th with the expansion. So that's on the channel now. If you want to see a playthrough of Evenfall with the expansion, head on over to the channel. And again, it was not a sponsored playthrough video. Now what that means is you will get our full detailed thoughts from all of the players around the table about Evenfall at the end of that video. I'm not going to repeat everything that I said in that video here because this video will be another 10 minutes long with me talking about Evenfall, and also I can't remember everything that I said about it, other than I loved it. I think Evenfall is a fantastic game. I enjoyed the expansion. I don't think you need the expansion. The base game is really, really good. The expansion is also really, really good. So yeah, it adds all to an already great game. So that is Evenfall. Next up, on February the 14th, Valentine's Day, I went out for a romantic meal and date with Vicky. No, I didn't. I stayed in and played Dragon's Den. Yes, that's it. February the 14th was Valentine's Day, but instead of doing anything nice and romantic, Vicky stayed downstairs and watched TV, and I played Dragon's Den. Or, more accurately, I hosted a game of Dragons Down. What happened is, this is on the channel now if you want to see it. This is a sponsored playthrough video. So Scott from Active Magic Games, who's the designer of this game, that was a sponsored video and Scott sponsored that video. So just get that out of the way straight away. So I didn't actually play the game that day. What happened is Bill and Paul came over in the afternoon and the evening and they played 2 games of Dragons Down. We had a learning game in the afternoon and we didn't manage to play a full game. We played enough that we learnt it. And then in the evening, we did a live playthrough. So that's on the channel now. This is a 4-hour playthrough and we didn't finish the game. Now, Dragons Down can be a bit of a long game, 4 hours and we didn't finish it, but we were teaching the audience, we were talking through our moves. If we played it again, it would definitely be 4 hours. We'd be able to get a game done in 4 hours. Now, Dragons Down is one of those games where I am very happy that I cover a wide variety of games on the channel. I mean, even if you just look at the games that I've talked about in this video log so far, we've got a mix of, medium to heavy Euro games. We've got adventure games. I've talked about War Room. Well, Dragons Down breaks the mold on all of those games, and it is something different and it is something special. So going back to the 70s, there was a game that came out. Was it 70s or early 80s? Maybe early 80s. There's a game that came out called Magic Realm. Now, Magic Realm is an infamous game because most people believe that the game is unplayable because of the rules provided in the game. And that's not to say that the rulebook is a bad rulebook, which I haven't read it myself, but I have heard a lot of other people say is a bad rulebook, but also the game is just massively complicated. Now, I don't want to insult anybody. If you are a lover of Magic Realm, and if you are able to play Magic Realm and you think you're playing the game by the correct rules and you've put yourself through that learning curve, then great. But the general consensus is that the game is very hard to play correctly because a lot of people struggle with the rule set. Now, Scott from Active Magic Games, Magic Realm is his favourite game, but he is fully aware that the game is very inaccessible to a modern audience. So Scott has spent, not kidding, 20 years working on Dragons Down. And Dragons Down is, when you look at it and you look at Magic Realm, you'll think, this looks like the same game. What Scott has done is he's managed to capture the feel of Magic Realm and put it into a more streamlined, shorter game. So that's what Dragons Down is. It is a spiritual successor to Magic Realm, but it's a very different game. This is a game where you will be exploring across a fantasy countryside world. You'll be doing quests, you'll be doing missions, you'll be fighting monsters, you'll be searching for treasure, all of that sort of thing. Now, what makes this game a little different is that a number of the mechanics in it might seem a little old school because it is based on Magic Realm. It does have dice in there for combat. It does have all sorts of stuff in there. But the one thing that made this game special, and again, I didn't even play the game myself. I was just hosting the game, running the stream and making sure that the audience understood the rules and Paul and Bill were playing the game correctly. This is a game which has an emergent narrative. And when we talk about emergent narrative in games, what I mean by that terminology is that the game tells a story without the need for actual narrative in the game. Now, we're living in a time where we have so many games that have narrative in them, either app-driven or pages and pages of text that you read, or flavor text on cards. The narrative is being given to us in the games that we're playing. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I play a lot of narrative-driven games. I play Arkham Horror, the card game, for example, which is full on narrative. And there's a lot of other games I play where the narrative is an important part of the game. Dragons Down doesn't have that. It doesn't have the flavor text on the cards. It doesn't have any kind of story that you have to read that tells you what's going on. Emergent narrative means that the game itself and the actions that you are taking in the game, they tell a story. And the stories that this game tells are really funny and really fantastic. So in the practice game in the afternoon, Bill was playing some kind of sorcerer who just learnt how to cast the fireball spell. He was hiding behind a bush and trying to ambush these centaurs by casting fireballs at them. And it kept going wrong and he kept fumbling, but he was managed to keep hiding from them. In the second game in the evening, it was hilarious because Paul's character, he was like this dwarf, big tough dwarf, and he was wandering around this town and he picked up a mission. And the mission said that you need to, it was called Prison Break, and you basically needed to kill all of the natives that were in the town and then break the person out of prison. Well, he got this mission card in the town itself. So we were joking by basically saying, okay, so Paul's character is wandering around the town, walks past this prison, and this guy going, psst, come over here, go and kill those guards, let me free, and I'll give you some stuff. So he did. He went on a rampage, he killed all of the guards in this town, got a bounty on his head, and then he rescued this prisoner from the prison break. Then he went off into the mountains to go to some demonic circle to collect his reward. On the way there, made too much noise, got ambushed by dragons and killed. And it's just, you know, you might be thinking as I'm explaining this, well, this sounds horrendous. This sounds like, and I'll be honest, if you are a Eurogame player, then you might not like this. This is absolutely not that. But it tells a great story. Now, the cleverness in this game, this is where it's clever, is the objective of this game is that as a player, you are trying to collect legend points. And the player with the most legend points at the end of the game will win. But if your character dies, you keep the legend points that you've gained from that character and you bank them, and then you literally start a new character. So this is not one of those games where your characters you're just totally impervious. We play so many games now where, oh, your character's dead. What does that mean? Well, you're exhausted and you'll come back next turn. It's like, no, in this game, if your character dies, they're dead. That's it. They're gone. And you have to generate a new character. And you come back into the world and you carry on playing. But you also have this thing called fame. And we didn't realise this until after the play session. But we were downstairs. Paul was putting his shoes on. And he was like, you know when I died and my character had 95 fame, which is huge. He'd done so many things in the game. So his character, that particular character, had 95 fame. At the end of the game, when your character retires, you gain 1 legend point for every 10 fame. So Paul was saying, oh, it's a real shame I died, because if that character had have survived until the end of the game, I would have gained 9 legend points for having 95 fame. Yes, but he died. So, what happens when you die is that you lose half the fame. Your fame is only worth half of what it would be anyway. So he gained 4 points when that character died. But then he said, didn't you say this afternoon that one of the things that you can do in the game is to retire early? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, well, what I should have done when my character was really famous, I should have retired. Because then when I'd have retired, I'd have got the 9 points from my 95 fame, and then that character's gone and I generate a new character. And we're like, oh yeah. So actually, that sort of opened our eyes to the game. And if you've got a character and they're really famous, you want to kind of retire them, bank the points for them, and then start another character. Anyway, check out the video if you are at all interested. It is a 4-hour playthrough. You don't need to watch all of it. You just need to watch a bit of it to see if it is the kind of game that you like. You might just enjoy watching the game. But yeah, we really enjoyed that day. Even though it was a sponsored playthrough video, that doesn't make any difference. We really enjoyed the day. The following Tuesday, people came over again. I took another day off work and I did 2 more videos, both of which were not sponsored, which means if you want to go and watch them, they are on the channel, and we give our honest opinions at the end of each of these games. The first one was Forest Shuffle with both of the expansions, the Alpine expansion and the Woodland Edge expansion. And then following that, we played AI 100% Human. Let's talk about Forest Shuffle first. And again, if you want to hear all of our thoughts and a big round the table discussion about the game, definitely check out the video. But I really like Forest Shuffle. I think it's a nice game. I think it plays at a nice pace. And I just enjoy the way that the game plays. Now, there are 2 things about Forest Shuffle which a lot of people talk about in a negative way. The first one is the scoring. At the end of the game, working out your score based on your all of your trees and where everything goes, yeah, it is a little bit of a pain. They have done an app, and we did use the app in the video, where you can basically scan in the tree and everything around it, and the app will say, I think it's these cards. Is that correct? Yes, it is. And it will do all of the points for you. Personally, I don't have a big problem with going through the scoring. A lot of people do, but I don't. I don't mind at the end of the game going, okay, well, I've got 3 points from this and 7 points from that. I don't mind that. But yeah, a lot of people do. So that for me is not a negative on the game. The other thing about the game, and this is something from when the game very first came out, is there does seem to be a slight balance issue with the wolves and the deer. And this is something for the last 2 years which has been talked about on forums and Facebook groups everywhere. Not a lot, but I've seen it enough to know that it is still a thing that people talk about. And what's really interesting about this is that every time it crops up in conversation, you have people say, well, I've played the game 20 times and I've never seen that as a problem at all in any game whatsoever. And then you have other people to say, I've played the game 5 times and in every single game, the player who got the wolves and the deer won. There are such different opinions about whether the wolves and the deer strategy is overpowered or not. My opinion is that it is very strong, and if one player does get the wolves and the deer and the other players don't do anything to stop them or can't do anything to stop them, then yes, personally I feel it is a little overpowered and a little bit unbalanced. And I will be honest with you, I think, and I'd love to hear from you if you're one of these people. If you're one of these people who thinks it isn't a problem, is that just because it hasn't happened? Because to be fair, it didn't happen in that live playthrough, right? Nobody got an excessive amount of wolves and deer in that game. So you know, if that's the only game you played and somebody's there saying, oh, the game's broken, the wolves and the deer strategy is too powerful, you're like, well, I don't think it's a problem. Is it just because you haven't seen it? I don't know. But anyway, I really like Forest Shuffle. There's another expansion coming out for it this year, which is a different kind of expansion, but it does contain the official solo mode, which was, I believe, an unofficial solo mode, which has been accepted and is so good that they're going to turn it into an official solo mode. That's coming out, I believe, later this year, and I have said to look out games that I would like to cover the solo mode on the channel. The next game we played made me a little nervous. The reason for this is I had previously played this game once before in a train station in Germany on the way back from Essen when I had a migraine. Now, I absolutely get that that's probably not the best environment to be playing a game and learning a game for the first time. But the game is AI 100% human. And it wasn't just that experience. I have heard mixed things about this game from a number of different people since it came out. And the reason why I was nervous is that I have a really good relationship with the publisher, and I contacted them and I said, we're going to be covering this game on the channel. And she said, that's great, I'll be there. So when you're doing a live playthrough of a game and the publisher is in the chat watching you play, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to like this game, and I don't know if the other people at the table are going to like this game, but because it's not a sponsored playthrough video, and I'm all for honesty and open opinions and things like that, we might get to the end of this video and all of us might say we don't like this game. That might happen. And based on the mixed things that I'd heard about the game going into it, I was thinking, I'm going to play this game so that I cover it on the channel because they gave me a review copy of the game in order for me to cover it on the channel. But then I don't think I'm going to play this game again. Based on me reading the rules, me talking to other people about it, and my dodgy experience trying to learn it. I'm happy to say that after that playthrough, we all enjoyed it. Now, I'm not saying it's the best game ever, and what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to, and that's because this game has a particular learning curve, particularly around the iconography. Now, the rulebook is also not great. The rulebook is ordered and structured in a weird way that kind of makes it hard to learn and a bit confusing. And the game itself looks like it's really simple. So we draft cards and then choose a card and play a card and that's it. Well, where's the rules of the game? And it's like, well, the rules of the game are actually very, very simple, but the complexity comes in every single card has scoring iconography on it. And you've got to Well, you're trying to get as many points as you can. And there's only 15 turns of the game, split up into 2 phases. I think 8 turns in the first one and then 7 in the second one, or whatever. And there's a scoring card at the end of phase 1 and a scoring card at the end of phase 2. But essentially, you are trying to get the best out of every card you play. And these cards, most of them don't have ongoing abilities. They score when you play them. So if you've got a card which says, right, when you play this card, count the number of rows that you've got that have got a blue and a yellow card next to each other, well, you don't want to play that on turn 1, because if you do, it's not going to score anything. You want to play that card near the end of the game. And what's clever about this game, and somebody left me a comment on my video, thank you very much, to say that this mechanism has been used before. But what makes this game special is that you have a hand of cards, but you also, in your hand of cards, you have a dividing card. And everything to the left of that is what's called your reserve. Your reserve are your cards. They're yours. Nobody can take them from you. The other cards that are in your hand of cards, you take one, put it into your reserve, and then pass the rest around. You are drafting these cards, not these cards. Now, essentially, what that means is you start with 2 cards in your reserve. So every time there's a draft, you pick up the cards that the player to your right gave you. You take one of them, you put it into your reserve. You now have 3 cards in your reserve, and you put the other cards face down on the table. Then, out of the 3 cards, you choose one to play. And that repeats 15 times. Every time you choose to play a card, you are choosing from the 3 cards in your reserve. But what that does mean is that you can save things up. So you draft a card and you go, well, that's going to be amazing for me later on, because it's going to give me, 4 points for every diamond that's got this, this, and this. Well, that's what I'm trying to do anyway. So I'm going to put that card in my reserve, and I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to play that, much, much later on in the game. And that's where the cleverness of this game comes in. It's going to take a couple of games, I think, before you actually get this game. But if you've tried it and you didn't like it, but you're a little bit thinking, maybe there's something to this, I'd try it again. Because I think that's the biggest problem with this game, is it's not that it isn't accessible. The iconography is a little confusing. Every single card is explained in the back. Could do with a little bit of a better explanation. But it's just, I think a lot of people are going to be confused the first time they play it. And that confusion, I think, if you give it a little bit of time, will go once you've played 2 or 3 games. And I think after 2 or 3 games, I think the game is actually going to be really good. So that's staying in my collection, and I want to play it again. Moving on. Friday, the 22nd, sponsored playthrough day. This is Tiletum. So I actually played a game of Tiletum the evening before at the local club on the Thursday night. That was a relearning game where, I played Tiletum at the local club to relearn the base game because it had been a while since I played it. And then on Friday 22nd, we did a practice game in the afternoon, followed by a live playthrough in the evening. That is on the channel if you want to see it. And you might be thinking, well, why do I want to watch a game from 2022? It's because Tiletum is getting an expansion. Last week, Board and Dice put up on their website that you can now pre-order it. So this is not crowdfunding. It's going straight to print, straight to retail, and you can pre-order it from Board and Dice as of last week. And they sponsored me to do a playthrough video. So it was a sponsored playthrough video. Bear that in mind when you're listening to me talking about the game. But I've got a few things to say about this game. The first one is, I went back and looked at my top 10 games of 2022 video, because the base game of Tiletum came out in 2022. And I went back and I'm like, why is it not on there? Because now that I've gone back and I've played it again, I really enjoy the game. I did enjoy it back in 2022, and you can tell that I enjoyed it because the game has stayed in my collection, and I've made it part of the GridCon library. So I think the game is a very good game. Sure, it's a dry, boring Euro with a dry, boring Euro theme, but mechanically, I think the game is very good. Now, that's the first thing I want to say about it. I think it should have been at least in my honourable mentions, if not in my top 10 of 2022. In fact, when I went back and looked at my video for the top 10 games of 2022, there were games in there that I don't think should be in there. I think Tiletum should be in the top 10 of that year. Who knows? But anyway, new expansion, Prospect for Silver, has come out. I'm covering that, and I did cover it on Friday the 22nd, and again, that video's on the channel if you want to go and check it out. But I needed to relearn the base game. So I took it along to our local club on the Thursday night and I advertised and I said, look, if anybody's interested in playing, let me know. I need to get this game played. And Simon said, yep, I'm up for it. And I thought, great, right. As long as it might just be me and Simon, but I'll hopefully find some more players. I'm setting the game up, and then unfortunately there was a problem with the buses and Simon wasn't going to be able to make it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm setting up this game and right now I have nobody who's wanting to play this game, but I need to play this game because I need to relearn it. Then Paul came over, another Paul came over. Paul was always up for games that I teach him. So he sat down and I'm like, well, there's two of us. And then Sally came over, one of the organisers of the club, and said, there's 2 new members tonight. Okay, right, 2 new members of the club, that's great. They've never been before. They've only played Catan and Carcassonne. And I'm in this dilemma. I'm like, well, this game is a lot heavier than Catan and Carcassonne. And I think it's a mother and her son. And they're at the club for the first time. First time opinions of things are really important. And I'm sat there and I'm going, oh, what am I going to do? I've got all of these things going on in my head thinking, I need to play this game. I can't say, oh, you're fairly new to gaming. Let's put this game away and get a lighter game out instead, because I need to play this. I need to learn it. So all I said to them, I said, this is a much more complicated game from what you've played before, but I will more than happily take as long as it needs to teach you the game. If you have any questions whatsoever, I don't mind if you keep asking me the same question over and over. I will hold your hands as much as you want. I will help you learn the game. I will give you advice. I will do all of that. And they said, yep, we're up for it. And I thought, right, okay, that's great. Because I remember Tiletum being medium weight. I don't remember it being excessively heavy. I just remember it being medium weight. So I thought, if I get this right, we'll be okay. I'm confident. I'm a good teacher of games. We can do this. And then, after setting up the game, I realised I don't remember how to play this game at all. I seem to remember we're walking around and building cathedrals, but I don't remember any of the game mechanically. So I'm like, okay, I can't teach you how to play this game because I don't actually remember. So effectively, what we did is Paul reads through the rule book and teaches them the game as he's reading through the rulebook. And for the next half hour, I'm dying inside. Because as I'm going through these rules and going, right, that's that rule. There's about 30 more. Off we go. How are we doing? Are we okay? Yeah, I think I understand it. Okay. And as time's going on, my anxiety is getting more and more. I'm getting more and more nervous because all I'm seeing is eyes glazed over, and the son was sat there just absolutely silent for the entire thing. And I'm like, okay, we're not even onto this yet, and we've only just covered the basic actions. And I'm like, oh dear. Anyway, let's skip ahead. We got to the end of the rules, and I said, look, we're just going to have to start playing. I don't remember how to play. We'll just start playing. We'll work it out together, and we'll see how we get on. And that's what we did. Skip ahead 2.5 hours to the end of the game, and we just about managed to get it done in time before the club closed. Sally came over to them and said, what did you think about it? And they said, oh, we loved it. It was great. And I knew at that point, because in that 2.5 hours, it was probably about maybe half an hour in, 45 minutes in, the young lad, and I don't know how old he was, who stayed absolutely silent for the entire of the teach and didn't ask a single question. And I thought, he's not getting any of this whatsoever. Turns out he got all of it. He almost won the game. In fact, he spent most of the game ahead on victory points, and then Paul just managed to pip him at the end with some final scoring. So not only did he listen, he take it all in. He played well, and he really enjoyed it. And the mother as well, she really enjoyed it as well. So I came away from that evening going, well, there you go, success. 2 new people at the club. They played a game way more complicated than anything they've played before. They both loved it, and they both said, oh yeah, if we play this again now, I'll have much more of an idea of what I was doing. I came last in that game. It was hilarious. So, yeah, good teacher. But anyway, that was the Thursday night. That was the base game. That was without the expansion. Then what I did is on the Friday afternoon, I did a practice game where I learnt how to play the expansion, and we played through it. And then Rob arrived and we did the live playthrough in the evening. So again, that's on the channel now if you want to go and watch that. You won't get any opinions from us in that video because it was a sponsored video. But the expansion does make the game more complex, as you would expect. Too much more complex? Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. No. What's interesting about this expansion is the parts that it adds are already very familiar if you know the game. You now have a prospector who's going underground. The prospector moves around, takes bonus tiles, places pillars and builds houses following all of the rules that we've had before. So there are effectively no new rules for the prospector, apart from there's 3 underground boards and you can start a new one. What I'm saying is it's not a huge step up in complexity. It's also got the technology boards, which add a massive amount of variability to the game. So, bearing in mind this was a sponsored playthrough video from Board and Dice, I've already said that I really enjoy the base game of Tiletum. I really enjoy the expansion as well. I probably wouldn't use the expansion with new players. I feel that that might be a step too far. But for anybody who enjoys the game, I think the expansion is a really good addition to it. So yeah, that is that. And then, since I'd had such a good time on that Thursday and Friday, 3 games of Tiletum in a 24-hour period, plus a live stream which was sponsored, which makes me nervous. I couldn't sleep. So what do I do at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday when I can't sleep? That's right, Talisman Digital. So, for those people who don't know, Talisman is a game which I've spent the last 30 years saying, this is a terrible, terrible game. I will never play it again. It's absolutely awful. This is a game that I spent half of my life playing when I was like 13, 14 years old. But then, about a year ago, or maybe less than a year ago, I got hold of the digital version of the game using the 5th edition rules. And I was curious. I was like, I wonder what they've changed in Talisman over the years. Is it just the same game with different artwork, or have they actually changed some of the rules? And it turns out with 5th edition, they have changed some of the rules. And those small rules tweaks opened my eyes to the game. Now, Talisman is still a very random game. You still walk around a board and draw a card, which could be a magical crown that adds 2 to your stats, or it could be a dragon that kills you, right? It does have that level of randomness. It does take ages. And you know, all of the problems with Talisman as a game, they're mostly still there. But these rules tweaks actually mean that the game does have some important choices in it. Specifically the movement. Once you've rolled the dice to see where you move to, because it is a roll and move game, you can, if you want to, spend 1 fate to actually choose where you want to move to within 6 spaces. Major rules change, right? Things like that. You can also use fate to re-roll dice. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Anyway, I did this. This was a late night stream. I actually live streamed this for my Patreon supporters. I did a solo playthrough of Talisman against 2 AI players on Friday 22nd. I don't have a physical copy of Talisman 5th edition. Hasbro have decided to blank me and stop replying to my emails. So there might never be a physical game covered on the channel. If they sent it to me, I would do it. More for a bit of fun, but it was actually quite good. Moving on, Saturday, me and Vicky did an exit game together. We've not done an exit game together for a long time, but on the Saturday evening, we've been wanting to do one for a while, and we played through Exit, the Stormy Flight. Now, I got out 4 of our Exit collection that I don't think we've played, and Vicky chose the Stormy Flight. It was 2 pips difficulty. So the Exit games have a difficulty rating between 1 and 5, and we were both quite tired. We'd both had a long day. We didn't get back from shopping till about 8 o'clock in the evening. So we were both a bit wrecked, and we thought, let's do an easy one. Now, our experience with the Exit games, we've done a lot of them, and we've done the Advent calendar for the last 3 years, is that they are not our favourite kind of puzzly escape room style games. We like them, we enjoy doing them, but they're very abstract. It contains a series of 10 puzzles, the answer to which is always a 3-digit number, and surely they're running out of ideas about how many different ways you can do puzzles to find a 3-digit number. Whereas some of the other games, such as Unlock, they're some of our favourites, they feel like a real adventure where you can do all sorts of different things. Anyway, we went into it with relatively low expectations, and because it was only a 2-pip difficulty, we thought, oh, we'll be all right with this one. It might be a little easy. I really enjoyed this one. The theme of the game actually worked quite well. You're on board a flight, it's been caught in an electrical storm, there's all sorts of problems, and you're trying to fix the ship and fix the autopilot system and do all of this stuff. It actually worked really well. And some of the puzzles were very creative. We were like, oh, they've not done that before. So all of my preconceptions of the Exit games, well, not preconceptions, but based on all of the times that I've played it before, is like, it's all getting a little samey. This one kind of broke the mold on that. We really enjoyed it. So that is the Stormy Flight. Have you played that one? And if so, what did you think about it? Right, the last set of games to talk about is what I played at the club on Sunday. So Sunday the 23rd of February was a games day at the local club, and I took along a few games. The first one is Avalon the Riven Veil, which I played because I needed to learn it as I'm covering it this Friday. So Avalon the Riven Veil is the next game from Shadowborn Games. They have previously published Oathsworn. Avalon the Riven Veil is not an Oathsworn. It is not another huge, massive box campaign game. It is a Euro-style area control game set with the tales of King Arthur and everything else. I'm doing a sponsored playthrough this coming Friday, so that was my learning game of it. Now, it's not fair for me to give my opinions on the game because it was a learning game with a prototype copy of the game. I mean, it's a mixture between prototype and pre-production. It's really good, and I've got the miniatures here, and these are pretty much final, but the rulebook is still a work in progress, the card text is still a work in progress, and as such, we struggled. We struggled a little bit because the rulebook that I had was referring to things which are not printed on the cards that I've got, or actually it's the other way around. There were things printed on the cards that I've got which aren't mentioned in the rulebook. Now, I've got all of the answers to everything. As of this morning, I've had a long discussion with them, and they've said, yeah, sorry, we sent you the old version of the cards. Those icons, you can ignore them. And I'm like, right, that would have helped knowing that in advance. And things like we drew a card for a monster, and I spent 10 minutes looking for this miniature, for this monster, thinking that I'd lost it. And they said, oh no, we've only sent you 9 of the monsters, even though you've got 12 cards. Just don't use the 3 cards. So all of that combined to, and I don't want to say a less than enjoyable session, because I did enjoy the game. By the end of the game, I think all of us that played it were like, okay, now we get it. But when you're trying to learn a game for the first time, when you're using a non-final rulebook, non-final board, non-final card, it can be quite tricky to learn the game. Now, don't worry, when you get the game, if you are a backer of the game, you're going to get a final rulebook with final cards. You're going to get everything fine. But for me, I had to go through that process of learning the game. So if you're interested, that's going to be covered on the channel. We are doing a 3-player live playthrough this Friday. But yes, after that learning curve and those humps to try and learn how to play the game, I think there's a good game in there, and I did enjoy it by the end of the game. The next 2 games that we played yesterday are Seven Empires, which I talked about earlier on, and Poison. Now, Poison is a classic Reiner Knizia card game that I'd not played for a long time. We had about 30 minutes left at the end of yesterday before the club closed. And we all got out a few games. Chris got out Poison and something else, and I got out the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. And then it turns out that the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game is 1 to 4 players. I thought it took 5, but it doesn't. So I put that back in the box, and out of the 2 games on offer, I said, well, let's play Poison. I remember playing Poison about 15 to 20 years ago, and I remember it being good, but my tastes then have probably changed a bit. So we'll give it a go. We're only here for another 30 minutes. Let's try it. We played 2 rounds of it. It's a really good game. Yeah, so Poison is a really good game. Very, very simple game. You've got a hand of cards of 4 different colours, and you're trying to place them into cauldrons, and you're trying to not cause the cauldrons to overflow, because if you do, you get the cards, and cards are bad. But whoever gets the most cards of a particular colour, those cards don't count for them. So it's got all of those cleverness plays that you kind of don't want to collect cards, but you do. And then there are poison cards that are bad and everything else. Anyway, Poison, little card game from Reiner Knizia, and I'm glad that this game is still being played now because it is really good. Right, that's all of the games that I've played kind of physically or digitally, live streamed or whatever. The next thing to talk about, and I'm just going to talk about these briefly, is my online plays. Now, most of these are on Board Game Arena. Some of them are on other websites, but Board Game Arena is a website that I use a lot. And I've played a lot of games on Board Game Arena over the last few weeks. Pirates of Maracaibo. I think it's still in beta, but the implementation is really good. I really enjoy Pirates of Maracaibo as a game, and it's a really good implementation on Board Game Arena. I've also played The White Castle, which is also on beta on Board Game Arena. So I played a game of White Castle. Now, I played that game of White Castle not remembering how to play the game. It's been too long since I've played White Castle. I remember enjoying it. Again, not as much as some people, but I do remember enjoying the game. And I played that game, and halfway through the game, I still didn't know what... I couldn't remember the rules of the game. I just remember a few people had said farmers are a little bit too powerful. So I decided to go for a farming strategy, and I won quite easily, which I probably shouldn't have done, not really knowing the rules, but maybe I accidentally played really well. Great Western Trail El Paso is also now in beta on Board Game Arena. So I've played my first game of Great Western Trail El Paso, and I loved it. Now, I'm a huge fan of Great Western Trail, 2nd edition. 1st edition I loved, 2nd edition is better. Argentina I wasn't that keen on, but Great Western Trail New Zealand was fantastic. Great Western Trail El Paso is a shorter, lighter version of Great Western Trail, and I've played it once on Board Game Arena and loved it. Now, I want to answer some of the criticisms of this game. People out there who love Great Western Trail are saying, what is the point of this game? We do not need this game. I would disagree. Great Western Trail is a heavy game. Great Western Trail El Paso is a medium weight game that plays in half the time. Is there room for both in your collection? In my opinion, yes. Because if I have an hour and a half at the end of the night and everybody wants to play Great Western Trail, we can't play it because it will take longer than an hour and a half. However, if we have Great Western Trail El Paso, which does capture the same feel as Great Western Trail done in a different way, it is a different game, then yeah. Also, you've got to be aware that the board gaming hobby is open to everybody of different skill levels and capabilities. And Great Western Trail is a heavy Euro game. It is outside of the comfort zone of a lot of people who only like light to medium games. Great Western Trail El Paso is great for them. So I think there is not a need, but there is a space for Great Western Trail El Paso. And the physical game, I've had an email from Lookout Games this morning, the physical game is on the way to me. I have agreed to do a solo playthrough of Great Western Trail El Paso, which is coming sometime in March, maybe April. Next up on the list is Teotihuacan, the tournament that is being organised as part of my Patreon supporters Slack channel. That is still going on. Now, I want to talk about this game. I do enjoy Teotihuacan, and this game was close. This game was tight, hard. I really had to think a lot in this game. This is a game which I knew was going to be very, very close on points. And this is like round 3 of the tournament. And I thought that I needed to win this game to go through. And it was going to be very, very, very close. And then on the final turn of the game, I forgot to tick the box that says, do you want to undo after your turn? So I did my turn, and it didn't work out, and I miscounted, and I misclicked, and then it went, right, your turn's over, it's now the next player. And I'm like, but no, I want to undo that. Oh. So Teotihuacan is one of the older implementations on Board Game Arena. Most of the newer implementations automatically give you a confirm button. So at the end of your turn, you confirm it, or you can undo it. And this doesn't have that. Now, it's not one of the really old implementations where there's no undo feature whatsoever, but there is a little box that says, at the end of your turn, do you want the opportunity to undo it and do it slightly differently? And I'd forgotten to tick that box. Devastated. I lost the game. by about 10 points. And that misclick and mismove at the end of the game, the other players admitted that I should have won if I'd have just done that slightly differently, which I'd planned to do. Anyway, the final started this morning, and it turns out that the top 2 players from that game went through to the final. Yay! So I'm in the final of the tournament. Fantastic. But anyway, that's Teotihuacan. Brilliant game. Love the game. Also played a game of Terraforming Mars on Board Game Arena that I probably won't play again. Not because I don't like Terraforming Mars, because I love Terraforming Mars, but the Board Game Arena implementation is just so massively inferior to the Hero Co-op website, which is completely unofficial, totally unofficial, and no disrespect meant to the people who did implement Terraforming Mars and Board Game Arena, because it's okay, but it doesn't give me all of the information that I need, which is on the other website. For example, the milestones or the objectives, whatever it is, on the other website, you can see exactly, just at a glance, how close each player is to meeting them. On the Board Game Arena implementation, it's a bit like the board game, where I've got to go, oh, okay, so let's look over there. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got, how many science symbols have you got? You've got 1, 2, 3. I don't want to have to do that in a game. If I'm playing a game digitally and that information is available, I want the game to present that information to me. Oh, there's a milestone here for having 7 science symbols. Just as a warning, that player's got 5. So, yeah, okay, right. And the other website does that. So yeah, I probably won't play it again on Board Game Arena. I also played a game of Puerto Rico online, which was, I think that was on Board Game Arena. But yeah, played a game of Puerto Rico online. So that's all of the games that I've played online, asynchronously, on Board Game Arena. And if you are one of my patron supporters and you want to join in with this online gaming, you can. On our Slack channel, we have a dedicated channel for online gaming, where people are creating all of these online games all of the time, and they're all asynchronous. It's very, very rare that anybody will play a live game. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't have any time for online gaming, we don't play these games live. Well, basically, you get an email and say it's your turn, and as long as you take your turn within, a few hours or something, then that's it. So the asynchronous online playing or online gaming means that I get to play a lot more games in a month than I would normally do. And the benefit for me is I get to play games with my patron supporters around the world. So yeah, if you're one of my patron supporters and want to play some online games with me, that's the best way to do it. This is Paul in the editing room on Tuesday morning. I'm just about to set up the studio for a solo playthrough of Galactic Cruise, which by the time you're watching this video will have already been on the channel. So Tuesday afternoon on the 25th of February, doing a solo playthrough of Galactic Cruise. Now, wanted to mention that I'm actually going to be doing a giveaway for a full all-in pledge, everything of Galactic Cruise. And there's a little bit of a sad story behind this. If any of you have watched my how to play video for Galactic Cruise, you may have noticed at the end of the video, it actually said for Steve. This is because Steve Jones, who has been a pillar of the community in the hobby for many, many years, he's been a patron supporter of mine, he's been a friend of mine, I have played a number of games with him. He is always seen at conventions giving up his time teaching people how to play games. Unfortunately, Steve passed away in January of this year, and he was a backer of Galactic Cruise, and I've been in contact with his wife, and the agreement is that we're going to be giving away his copy of the game, and we're doing it as part of a charity fundraiser. So the fundraiser is live now. All you need to do, if you are interested in donating to Cancer Research UK and also being in with the chance of winning, you will find the link to the fundraising campaign in the description of this video. It's held over on a website called Tiltify. All of the money goes to charity, apart from a small percentage that Tiltify take. But at the end of the campaign, well, the campaign never actually ends. It stays open forever. But on March 31st, I am going to be doing a draw. Anybody who has donated £5 or more will get entered into the giveaway, and you might win Steve's copy of Galactic Cruise, all in, the whole shebang. Delivery will be covered as well, so don't worry about that. All I will say is, when you are donating and you are filling in the form, there is a tick box at the bottom to say, allow the fundraiser to contact you. You have to tick that box. If you don't and you win, I won't get any of your information, and I will need your email address in order to contact you if you do win. So yeah, the fundraiser is live. If you're interested in either supporting, feel free to go on and donate, or if you want to be in with the chance of winning Steve's copy of the game, then yeah, that's all over there. So what's coming to the channel soon over the next few weeks? Well, the first one, I mentioned this earlier on, Avalon, the Riven Veil. That is happening this Friday. Now, I'm aiming that this vlog goes out on Thursday, so if you're watching this vlog on Thursday, tomorrow, I will be doing a live playthrough of Avalon, the Riven Veil at 8 o'clock. Then, at the start of March, I am covering Astro Navigators. Now, I don't know that much about this game, but the designer is one of my Patreon supporters, and they contacted me, Essen, a couple of years ago, and a couple of years have passed, and the game is there. I don't think it's actually out yet, but I've got a prototype of it, and I'm going to be doing some rulebook consultancy for it, and I'm going to be doing a live playthrough. So that's happening at the start of March. Also, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game that I mentioned earlier on, I'm going to be doing a video on that as well, and Assyria from Garphill Games. Now, if you are one of those people that has been watching my videos for the last few years, you may have noticed that a few times in the last few years I have mentioned an older game called Assyria. It is one of my favourite games of the range of games that came out from Istari Games about 15-20 years ago. And they released a whole bunch of games, including Kalis, but Assyria was one of the best ones. And a few times over the last few years I've kind of mentioned I should go back and play Assyria again. It's a very, very good game. I should cover it on the channel. Well, there's no need, because Garphill Games are effectively publishing the second edition of Assyria. I'm really keen to see what Garphill Games have done with it. A copy is being printed, it's being sent to me, and the plan is that I'm going to be covering it sometime around the middle of March. Other things that are going to be coming to the channel at the end of March, I have another playthrough video of Galactic Cruise coming, and you might think, well, why am I doing another video for Galactic Cruise? It's because the team from Dranda Games are coming over and they want to play it. So Dranda Games are coming here to the studio on the 28th of March, and we're going to be doing a 4-player live playthrough on the channel. I've also got a video coming up on the difference, or the main differences in Gloomhaven 2nd Edition. I have a prototype of Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, and I'm going to be working on that in the background. So that's what's coming up on the channel over the next few weeks. Okay, something a little bit different now, and I just want to get your feedback on this to see if you're okay with it. Hopefully you are okay with it, but I'm actually doing a little bit of promotion work for a third-party product. Now, this is not paid promotion. I wasn't paid any money for this whatsoever. I was sent some free product, but just so you know, this is not paid sponsorship. I'm not getting any money from this whatsoever. But a company is making a new set of what they're calling organizers. It's basically a storage solution for playmats, and they are going on crowdfunding tomorrow. Now remember, I'm recording this on Monday, so the crowdfunding campaign, by the time you watch this video, the crowdfunding campaign is running, and I will put a link to it in the description of this video. Now, they've sent me one of their products for me in return for me mentioning it in this video. So yeah, I'm not being paid any money, but I did get some of this product. Now, what I will say is I'm doing a giveaway. So what you need to do, you could win one of these organizers, and they've said you can win whichever one you want because they do a variety of different styles, and I'll put some pictures on screen now of the different ones that they do, but you can get any one of these. What you need to do to enter this contest is you need to do two things. First of all, you need to leave me a comment in this video telling me what your favorite game mat is that you own. And if you don't own a game mat, tell me which game you would like a game mat for. The second thing you need to do is you need to click on the link which is in the description of this video and fill in the Google form. What I will do is I will pick a winner from the Google form, but you need to have left me a comment in this video as well. So leaving me a comment in this video is not enough. You need to fill in the form as well. And if you are one of my Patreon supporters, then you will get double entries. So if you fill in the form and you are a Patreon supporter of mine, you get 2 entries into the contest. Now, I'm going to be doing the draw for the contest. When am I going to be doing it? I'm going to be doing it, just bear with a minute. It's the 18th of March. That's it. On the 18th of March, I will be doing the draw and I will be announcing the winner. Now, as I've mentioned, the campaign will already be live at the point that this video goes live. So, I would recommend that if you are interested in one of these products, that you support the campaign, you back the campaign, you go on. But then, when I do the draw on the 18th, if it turns out that you win, and you're going to get one for free, you can then go in and cancel your pledge. I think that will be the better way of doing it. Yeah, I think so. It's up to you. What you could do is you could wait until March 18th, and then if you don't win the contest, then you could back it. Because I think their campaign is running until the 25th. So either way, I wanted to make sure that I choose the winner of the giveaway contest before the crowdfunding campaign ends. And yeah, that's about it really. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you are a follower of mine and you are watching these videos, let me know if you're comfortable with me doing this kind of thing on the video, because I don't certainly, first of all, I don't do the paid promotions. I don't go, oh, and while you're here, this video was sponsored by, you know, these nice cereal bars. Look at me eating a nice cereal bar. I hate the idea of that. The only reason that I agreed to do this is because when they contacted me, they were very nice about it, and they agreed to do a giveaway for one of my Patreon supporters. For one of my viewers. You don't have to be a Patreon supporter to win. You've just got more chance of winning if you are a Patreon supporter. So I said, sure, I'll do that, and I'll do it in the video log. Yeah, let me know what you think, and good luck if you are going to enter the contest. Right, let's give you a quick Patreon update. So, unfortunately, for the second month running, support has continued to drop. We are now at 1,172 supporters, which is still a fantastic number, but it has dropped down from last month by 5. Again, loads of new people have joined. I think 17 new people have joined in the last month, but we've had 22 people leave. So it's not a problem, like I said last month. It is just a little unusual that we've had like 2.5 years of steady, slow, but steady growth with a few people each month joining. And then in the last couple of months, it's dropped and then it's dropped again. So again, nothing to worry about, but it's just one of those things. The one thing that is slightly worrying about, and I don't lose too much sleep over this, but it does always fill me with a bit of, why am I doing this kind of thing, is the views on these video logs. In fact, the views on my videos in general, and I don't want this to come across as, Paul's complaining about his lack of views again, but the views aren't great. If you compare the views that I'm getting on the videos to what I was getting 3 or 4 years ago, they're a bit lower. And I remember when I started, everybody said, oh, stick at it, and if you keep improving and keep the quality going, you'll find your audience and you'll build your audience. Well, yeah, it's kind of dropped, which is really unusual, because in the last 3 or 4 years, Patreon supporters doubled. You know, it's gone up from like 400, 500 supporters to like over 1,000 supporters, yet the views on the videos have been dropping. If we take the recent video logs just as an example, the video log from November had 7,500 views, which is great. I don't normally get that many. But then December had 5,500 views, and then January had 3,500 views. So I'm like, I don't know how many views this video is going to get, but it's just a little, you know, I like it when things stay roughly consistent. But to go from 7.5 down to 5.5 down to 3.5, yeah, nothing I can do. Don't worry, I'm not going to start changing what I do. There are other content creators out there that will be doing those 5 or 10 minute videos where they either rant at the camera about something they're angry about, or they do some kind of flashy video where they tell you that this game is the best game ever. Those videos always get, you know, huge amount of views and huge amount of comments. I can't do those. I simply can't do those type of videos. It just makes me really uncomfortable. The playthrough videos are about the only type of video I do that I'm comfortable doing, and even then I'm still nervous if it's a sponsored playthrough, because I want to make sure that I get it right. So I'm not going to start changing what I do, and I absolutely get, you know, because a lot of you might be already writing comments saying, well, Paul, you're doing playthrough videos. Playthrough videos don't get as many views as the other types of videos. I know that, you know, but I can't change and start doing, you know, like TikTok shorts or something like that. No disrespect to Mark Monk, who does fantastic videos on TikTok. I don't have that capability to do that kind of thing. I just want to sit here, play the games, show you how the games are being played, and hopefully it will provide some entertainment and also help you make a decision about whether it's the kind of game that you want to play. So, that said, on screen now is a list of those 17 people that have joined me since the last video log. Thank you very much to all of you, but also thank you to everybody who has stayed with me as a supporter. I know things are difficult with everything that's going on in the world, and I know that I've been saying that for the last few years, but that's because everything is difficult in the world, and everything is probably going to get more difficult as time goes on because of what is going on in the world at the moment. But I'm still here, I'm still producing videos, and hopefully you enjoy them. Now, just a quick mention about the charity payments. Last month, I mentioned that we were donating the advertising revenue to an ALS support charity in Barcelona chosen by designer Danny Garcia, who's sadly been recently diagnosed with ALS. Now, that payment has finally, after multiple phone calls from my bank, gone through. My bank were being very diligent and basically said, "We've just noticed a bank transfer going to some random bank account in Barcelona. What's going on?" And they demanded loads and loads of information from me, including Danny Garcia's age, phone number, and I'm like, "No, I'm not giving you this." And they're like, "Well, why aren't you giving this?" I said, "Because he's nothing to do with it. He's chosen the charity. The money's not going..." Anyway, so yeah, 2 30-minute conversations with my bank. They were just being careful, but that money has now gone through. We've had the payment, and I've heard from the charity, and they have received that money. So again, a huge thank you to all of you who watch my videos, because if you're watching my videos, every single penny of advertising revenue goes to charity, and you make this possible. And again, I say this every month, but a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Because the Patreon support is so good, I am able to give this money to charity. I don't need this money myself, so I can do something good with it, and that's great. And I'm only able to do that because of the support of the Patreon campaign. The charity money for this month, we haven't decided where it goes yet. We are actually behind on charity payments. Me and Vicky, we need to do a lot of them. We probably have 2 or 3 months worth that we haven't allocated out yet. So I'm always keen to hear your ideas. If you have any ideas for charities that you want us to support for whatever reason, either you've got loved ones who need care, or a particular charity has been helpful for you in the past, or anything like that, please let them know. We are open to all suggestions. Just let me know either in the comment of this video, drop me an email, or some other way. Very keen to hear from you. That's everything. I'm going to skip the personal update for this month because this video is probably already long and there isn't major news to tell you, I don't think. But that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please leave me a comment. Please give the video a thumbs up. All of that sort of thing does help the algorithm, and hopefully we'll get more attention to the video and get more views, which means more money for charity. All good. Right. Thank you again. We'll see you all next month. Thanks for watching. Bye-byes.